Hello again, and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Noble Father podcast. Today is September the 29th of 2025. And no matter how you found this podcast, this is a podcast where I really speak openly and very, very plainly about the things that I believe in. And you better believe whenever I say that I do this with utmost respect, and nothing that I say is in hate towards any specific group of people. The fact that I need to even disclaimer that is beyond me, but we live in this world where it's just we need to be careful. You need to disclaimer your words, right? Let it be known, right, that I do not stand for hate in any way or any form towards any person. What I do hate is the sin. I hate things that are counter to what God says in his book of truth. And, you might think that that's not what you agree with. And, you're more than welcome to not listen to the podcast. But, I'd say, come into this with an open mind, right? Is that the things that we fight in this life is spiritual forces of evil. And so it's not anything physical. It's not anything that we can put our hands on, and it's not tangible to hold in our hands. But you can't say that there's no great evil in the world, right? And if you do know that there's great evil in the world, well, then you know that there's got to be a force for good on the opposing end. And that's what I stand on. Today, as I was thinking and asking God, what is it you want me to speak about today? It's very prevailing this week and actually for the last little while, we've had so many church arsons in Canada, in our country. And, hopefully it's not a news flash to you, but if it is, really start to look into why Christianity is one of the most oppressed religions in all of the world. Case in point, 3 days ago, there was a church in Edmonton, a Ukrainian Orthodox church in Edmonton that was set on fire. Intentional artists with an accelerant that was used. This is one of hundreds of fires we've had in Canada when it comes to a religious building like a church, okay? In particular, a church. No other religion is being attacked the way that it is in our world, let alone Canada, like Christianity is. There's no Christianophobia or, discrimination against Christians. The same treatment that the Islamic community gets from people not disrespecting them is not afforded by Christians. It's just cold, hard truth, and many people will disagree. But the fact that we've even got to say that setting a church on fire is a hate crime is already kind of the issue. And then just yesterday, news of a LDS church, Mormon church in Michigan getting set on fire, and a shooting and an active shooting at the church. Right? They also just released that they found an IED device in the vehicle. And it just shows how greatly we are under attack. We are under attack in our faith. And like I've said in podcasts in the past, there's coming a day where we will be persecuted for what we believe. And it's already happening in the world, all over the world. China just released a new provision that's cracking down on digital meetups for Christian or religious institutions. And so these Bible studies or Zoom online meetups, online churches through Zoom that are meeting up need to also pledge allegiance to the government. And it's troubling, right? It's deeply troubling, and one in which we shouldn't be surprised about. But at the same time, I need to inform people and tell you that this is happening. If you are a baby Christian or you are new to the faith, realize that your decision is not it's not an easy one, right? And I always go to tell people, right, that have just joined the faith or have done that walk, and I say, hey, like, your life is not going to get any easier. It is going to be more difficult because now you're walking in the light. And what does the evil want to do? It wants to snuff out that light. And so it will come after you, and you will see that happen. And it's coming in a day that is coming. I want to say that people that are listening to this, and there are those who will listen to the information and be very, very rejecting of the information. You really need to ask yourself, what do you believe, right? Why are you feeling the way that you feel? The Bible is very clear about the wisdom that God has in the Bible, is that there's going to be those who are on the other side of the fence who don't have the discernment. It will be like foolishness to them. 1 Corinthians 1:18 says, "For the word of the cross is folly to those who are perishing." Folly, another word could be foolishness to those who are perishing, but to those who are being saved, it is the power of God. So, it may be perceived as foolishness, right? What are we seeing in our day and age? Things that are wrong are now right. Things that were objectively true is now subjectively true. What was false then is now true now. Man, there's so many things in our world. I can tie so many things to it. There was a council person who is backed by or funded and was put in place by good funds from George Soros, who's this left-leaning dude. And this woman was recorded saying that a man pleasuring himself at a playground is not respecting his sexuality, and that drag shows at with kids at them is not respecting this person's sexuality. Like, we're at a point in time where what's up is down, what's left is right. What's right is now wrong, and what's wrong is now right. And so this is just to say that we are under attack, greatly under attack. Another thing that I'll have to say in this podcast, and I need to touch on this, is that there is, it's amazing to see. We like to say the West is under attack, right? That there's people who are here that are trying to make their way into government, and they're trying to make their way into being a majority in our country. There are videos online of people who are talking at protests saying that one day they will form the majority and they will institute Sharia law. The UK is a great example. Australia is another example. France is another example. There's tons of European countries that have let in so many Muslims that refugees from other places that they're now about to form a majority. And in doing so, there's really nothing we can do. We are now in this place of, and Canada as well, right? And I'm saying this because recently Canada just declared that they are recognizing the state of Palestine. Again, I am not sharing this and saying that I'm against Muslims. I have friends who are Muslims. I have relationships with people who are Muslims. But this is a problem that is coming up now, very pressing, and it's very, very, it's something we need to be aware of, right? This is the future that my kids are going to be growing up in. Why would I not be fired up or have a vested interest in talking about it, or at least warning people about it? Okay. And here it is. Case in point, don't take it from me as, oh, Theo is just an Islamophobe and this is how he's, the blah, blah, blah. There are people out there that you can go and seek and find this information from. Case in point, there's a guy named Muhammad Tawhidi, and he's called the Imam of Peace. But he speaks from his perspective as a Muslim himself. And he shares about why, and this is things that we need to be conscious of, right? Gaza neighbors a Muslim country in Egypt, right? And go online, go look this up. Go see the border between Gaza and Egypt. Why is it fenced in with barbed wire? Why are they not taking in the people from Gaza? There's so many other Muslim countries around. Why aren't they taking the people of Gaza? Do you ever wonder that? Do you ever wonder why that is? Well, then Muhammad Tawhidi is going to tell you about it because it's very interesting. And I'll go to say this. Denmark in 1992 let in 321 Palestinian refugees into their country. Of those 321, 64%, 204 or 207 refugees of that 321 ended up committing like criminal offenses, right? They were found to be criminally arrested, and 71 of them went into jail. Out of 321. And so that was a failed experiment, right? One in which Denmark learned a lesson. And now in August of 28, which was a month ago, declared that they're not taking any Palestinian refugees. Now, what would the Western world tell you? Oh, that's Islamophobic of them. How can they not be humanitarian? Why can you not let these people in? These people are hurting, right? My church also, right? We helped support a few refugees coming into the country. Now, not all of them are, okay? I'm not saying that not all Muslims are this way, all right? But you need to be careful, right? Who are you letting into the country? I remember at the time I was very, very upset because we had no way of vetting these people. We had no idea what their ideology is. Not to mention, right, a few months ago, right, we had protests in Canada. They were burning Canadian flags. They were burning American flags. They were burning Israeli flags and saying death to Canada, death to USA, death to Israel. There was nothing that was done by the police. I don't know how that doesn't constitute as a hate crime, let alone terrorism, right? But nobody did anything. You can see the same thing, same trends happening in UK, same things happening in Australia, same things happening in France, same things happening here in Canada, right? This is very interesting. So I'm going to play that clip because I want you to really see what people are saying about this, because it's actually very interesting. Like, why would he be sharing from this perspective about these people? And if he's saying that, what should we think about our situation? What should we be doing about this situation? Because there's a reason they have these processes in place and why they're not taking these people into their countries, right? This isn't just us. Why are they making us look bad whenever they're not taking in the people as well? And so this is really just to tell you, like, do not be deceived. You really need to look into these things and like observe this. Why is this happening and what is going on? All right, I'm going to play this.
The other extremist groups, like the Muslim Brotherhood, who are friends with the IRGC and Hezbollah people, they cannot operate in Bahrain, in Oman. These are Muslim countries. Where do they operate? In London, in France, in Washington, D.C., in Australia, in Canada, Toronto. They operate here. They have bank accounts. They register charity. Right. So Macron, the president of France, recently said, the Islamic world is in a crisis. I say, no, you are in a crisis. You went to the Muslim countries and you imported the garbage that the Muslim countries wanted to put in prison or isolate away from society. You went and you imported them. Why? For cheap labor. But these Islamist extremists, they don't want to work. They want free welfare. They want to marry French women, blonde hair, blue eyes. They don't have time to work. So look at Poland. They don't complain from Islamic extremism, not a single terrorist attack in Poland. The moment they sense there's a problem, they crack down on it. Polish policy, beautiful. The French, no, come. When they come, they use the resources. They go to Washington, D.C., and they sit in Congress. They support the Iranian regime. They go against the sanctions in Congress, right, with their hijab. Why? Because the ideology is filth to begin with. When you import that, or you allow it in, or you amplify it, or you glorify it in any way, you make your bed, sleep in it. So that is also a problem of the West. The question is, Tina, did the extremists become stronger or the West become weaker?
And so I want to give context to this conversation, this interview that they did, because this was after the 2023 riots in France, in which there was a kid who got shot by a police officer, and this kid was obviously up to no good, and yet was not complying with police officers, and they shot him, and he was killed. And so people were up in arms about it. This is very similar to the George Floyd riot, right? There was this anti-police sentiment saying, oh, it's racial prejudice, it's all this stuff. And yet this guy is saying, like, no, you imported this. You asked for it. Well, you made your bed. Now go sleep in it. You invited these people into your country. They have garbage ideology, and they get into places of power. They support Iran. They support the extermination of the Jewish people. They have all this garbage ideology. You imported this. Now you need to sleep in it. This is 2 years ago, right? I don't think anything has changed since then. And yet we're still taking in these people, and we're being told that, oh, we need to support these people. So to see Canada, UK, Australia, and all these other countries coming out and declaring that the state of Palestine is recognizing the state, it's so interesting. Why are we supporting people who are run by terrorists, people who support an authority that is driven by terrorism, right? And I've posted about this on my feed a lot, right? What's interesting is they've tried to make the two-state solution a reality many times before. When the Israelites, when the Jewish people came back into the Middle East, right? Part of UK owned the entire region, and they tried to make the two-state solution a reality, and they offered, and this, you can look this up. This is called the Peel Commission, PEL Commission. It was back in 1949. They offered the Palestinians a 80-20 split of the land. So they would give Palestinians 80% of the land, and the Jews would live in the remaining 20%. The Jews were okay with this. They were consenting. They're like, okay, we'll do this to make it work, right? Because they realized that they're coming back from, all these other places, right? They were a people that was spread across everywhere. That, understandably, they're like, well, we'll relegate the land. 20% of it, we'll live in the 20%, and give the 80% to the Palestinians. The Palestinians rejected it. There were 4 more attempts to try to get them to agree on a two-state solution, and they would not do it. Now, it gives you a sense of, well, why do they do it that way? Why are they so strict on it? If they really do want to coexist together, then why are they not agreeing to something, especially when terms are heavily in their favor? The truth is, they really don't like the Jewish people. They want to annihilate them off the face of the earth. The phrase "from the Jordan to the sea" means from the Jordan to the sea, they want nothing else but their own land. They don't want the Jews. They need to annihilate all the Jews. Where does this sentiment come from? Iran. Just like this guy's saying. From Iran. Right? They support the Iranian government, right? What is the biggest fear whenever Iran gets a nuclear weapon? If they get a nuclear weapon, Israel is probably going to be wiped off the map, right? America as well probably try to instigate the world into a giant war. Yeah, people are going to say, yeah, that's not going to happen, blah blah blah. But this is the world that we live in, right? And for us to now, as a country, support these people, and then there's people that don't even understand what "from the Jordan to the sea" means, and they're standing there like, oh yeah, we're pro-Palestine, all this stuff, right? The gays that support pro-Palestinian, movements and stuff. It's like, dude, you don't even understand what these people would do to you. If they form a majority here in Canada, you're going to see what they're going to do to gays, what they're going to do to transsexuals, what are they going to do to even Christians, right? They're going to behead anybody who doesn't believe what you believe, what they believe. And this isn't something that is new. Go look at the Crusades. What was the Islamic demands for the countries that were in the region that don't believe in Islam? They ruled. They conquered 2/3 of the world back in the day. And what was the predominant thing? Well, pay a tax, and you can find this on Charlie Kirk as well. Charlie Kirk talked about it, right? Pay a tax, or we enslave your family, right? Enslave your wives, enslave your daughters, right? And use your sons as slaves, right? These are harsh conditions. You might say, "Oh yeah, that's not who they are. They're a religion of peace now." This guy literally just told you he's not a religion of peace, right? That these people, their ideology, there's obviously differences, right? I forgot the difference between Shiite or Sunni Muslims, but there's this component in there, right? Now I know that Muhammad Tawhidi has said that the Quran itself says that the land belongs to Israel. So there are people out there who are lying to their own people, their own followers, saying that Israel does not deserve this land. And so here's the thing is that we need to be careful of. What do you believe? What is it you believe? Isn't it interesting that Christians are the most persecuted in the entire world, right? That we are not afforded the same liberties of protection than other religions, other cultures even. We are not afforded the same. God is openly mocked, and nothing happens. There's no, and here's the thing as well, is that we have bought into that. As Christians, was the turn the other cheek, and we've just been so okay with it. And if you're listening to this right now, know that we fight a spiritual war. This spiritual war demands that we stand up for what we believe in, even whenever it's hard for us to do. This is not easy. This isn't an easy topic to broach. But please listen to what's going on. The hints are out there. The truth is out there. Open your eyes to the fact that there's something coming. You can feel it in your heart. It's time to turn towards God, lean into the Holy Spirit, and let him guide your path forward. Jesus is coming back soon. Are you ready for that day? And I tell you this because as a father, you're in charge of yourself. Does that still break my heart that you might be making the wrong decision for your own eternal well-being? Absolutely. But can you afford to be wrong for your children, for your future generations? Can you afford to be wrong? Can you afford to be closed-minded? Can you afford to stay in the algorithm that you are in and not see anything outside of it, or not listen to what's going on in the podcast, on this podcast, and what I'm talking about right now, or going to find your own answers in the book of love, in the Bible? Can you afford to be wrong? And that is the question I want to leave with you. Can you afford to be wrong? This is a difficult topic to talk about. I don't want to put too much into this episode. I definitely think that this is definitely enough for you to work with. Just really think about it, right? We need to start standing up for what we believe in. And, we have places in the world, Michigan, for example, another example, I'm going to keep going on this one then, is that a Muslim mayor has taken over, and now mosques are allowed to blast their prayers at 5 a.m. in the morning, disturbing the neighborhood. And the mayor, this Muslim mayor, has declared so far even to say that Christians are not welcome in his town anymore. Nothing's being done about this, right? Protests in Canada, right? Apparently the noise fines and the violations that they had have all been canceled, right? Now they're okay to not pay them. Why? Right? And then you look at the Freedom Convoy, right, that we had here in Canada, and these people are being jailed for way longer for nothing, just for speaking their minds, right? No, it's not that they're Christian or anything, but like we have things really twisted. The injustice of man has gotten to a point where it's celebrating the evil, and it's allowing the corrupt to keep taking advantage of innocent people. And here's the thing I'll say lastly too, is that so many people will go onto my posts and say, "Oh, Trump bad," and why this, and talk against a thing. It's like, but dude, do you actually think about what is being done? Do you actually see from a perspective of there might be good from something like this, right? Take away from the fact that you hate this person or you don't like this person, that you don't agree with them. Even I will do that sometimes. I will look at politicians who I don't agree with, and I see the decisions they make, and I think, wow, that's actually a good decision. Can you come at this from a neutral perspective and include or attach any kind of emotional response to how you see a person or a situation. Take it at face value, see it from a neutral position, and I guarantee your life is going to change. The same I'll say about the Bible. Don't let what other people have told you about it. Go and find your own answers. What does the Bible say? What does the historical record say about Jesus? What does the historical record say about the stuff that was said in the Bible? Does it match up? Is it the truth, right? The Quran says the book is truth. The Quran says the Bible is truth. Now, if the Quran says the Bible is truth, then, and it's the only book, well, then I'm sorry, then that means that the Quran is not true, right? Then we are standing on truth. This is the truth, right? And the declaration that Jesus was just a prophet himself is incorrect. If Jesus was just a prophet, then he could not be resurrected from the dead. He would not be alive today and have over 150 witnesses that saw him alive after he was crucified. Wouldn't be possible. So let's just stand on truth. This is the truth. Are you willing to go and dig? And are you willing to make that mistake for your family, for your children, for the generations after them? Can you afford to be wrong? And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I may not have all the answers, but we can go and find the answers to these questions together. I appreciate you coming onto this podcast and listening. Please share it with your friends who need to hear it. There are very scary times ahead, and it's not going to get any easier. It's going to get worse, and it's going to get worse until Jesus returns. And so remember, we're not promised tomorrow, right? And so be present and stay noble. Bye for now.